Richard Prosser.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm pleased to rise on behalf of New Zealand First to take a final call on this third reading of the Agricultural Compounds and Veterinary Medicines Amendment Bill. New Zealand First supports this bill. Mr Speaker, there has been and there continues to be a degree of misunderstanding about what this bill actually is and what it does. What this bill doesn't deal with is patents or trademarks, Mr Speaker. It doesn't address the ownership of patented compounds or indeed the nature of those compounds. What it deals with, this bill, is the data that is generated in the pursuit of the development of those compounds, not with the compounds themselves. So it's not about patents, it's about the research that goes into creating patentable products. And products themselves will still be protected or can still be protected by other legislation, providing that the researcher or the developer, whoever it is that's created the compound or discovered the use for it, has the wherewithal to fund that patenting and trademarking process on an international scale. But nothing in this bill actually stands in the way of a third party doing their own research and recreating a particular compound. It does, however, prevent that third party from gaining access to the data that was used or generated in the development of the compound or in the development of the innovative use for it by the original inventor. Or more to the point, it extends the protections that already exist, Mr Speaker, from 5 years to 10 against the original change that the officials proposed, which was to go to 8 years. People have talked about TPP and how this bill may affect it or be affected by it. Mr Speaker, the way that this bill is structured falls short of what the TPP would require if in fact the TPP was going to happen, which as we now know it probably isn't, certainly in its current form or time frame, depending on the outcome of the United States election. And the bill's proposed 10-year protection is still conditional on new and innovative uses being registered for any given compound, rather than being a blanket protection as applies in Australia and some other parts of the world, and indeed as the TPP would require. So the advantage to New Zealand in extending the research protection is that it provides an additional incentive for companies to do their high-tech R&D here rather than anywhere else. My colleague from the Greens raised the concern, raised it tonight, but also raised it in Select Committee that by passing this bill we're helping the likes of Monsanto and other evil empires to tighten their grip on the free peoples of the world, and really that's not the case, Mr Speaker. My point in response, and I will reiterate it here, is that there is a large and growing thrust in the world's wealthy and discerning markets towards organics and other foods that are produced without GE, without GM, without excessive use of the kind of agri-chemicals as we have come to consider them. And producing those foods, which is something that New Zealand does particularly well and that we are developing a reputation for, if we're going to do that on a large commercial scale, that will still require specialty compounds in order to maximise the safe and efficient production. And this bill will in fact make it easier for companies to develop such compounds, Mr Speaker. So you'll have the likes of better compost starter enzymes, better fatty acid herbicides, better BTK carrier solutions, better soap-based fungicides, all those sorts of things. It's not just a bill that protects chemical companies as we know them. It is a bill that gives additional protection to all manner of further ongoing agrochemical research, including into organics and GE-free. And extending the protections gives companies that are doing that sort of work, Mr Speaker, an additional incentive to build their research labs here and carry out that work here, the research and the manufacturing, rather than doing it in California or Switzerland or somewhere else. I don't think it's going to be a bill that will enable evil corporations to give us three-eyed sheep or two-headed chickens or asparagus that glows in the dark, or anything else that we don't want, Mr Speaker. I've never seen asparagus that glows in the dark, Mr Woodhouse. I have seen a report about some pigs that glow in the dark. They were created in Japan, but it was a whole different story. And so when those companies do elect to do that research and manufacturing here in New Zealand, Mr Speaker, it's this country and our economy that benefit. And we benefit through job creation, and that's everything from the construction sector as they build new labs and new factories. We benefit in terms of attracting more of our best and brightest to universities to study biological and physical sciences that are involved in the manufacture, the research, the development of agricultural compounds, veterinary medicines. And we keep more of those people here in New Zealand because they can get the good, well-paying, career-advancing jobs that their qualifications then call for here in New Zealand rather than having to go overseas to find that work. And small companies are advantaged by these sorts of additional protections also, Mr Speaker, because they are the ones who are least able to gain additional protections through other means. They don't necessarily have the funding, the wherewithal behind them to go into international legal processes to get trademarks, to get patents and so forth. And this is another mechanism by which we can extend those protections to them. So it's a shot in the arm for the kind of Kiwi inventor, the innovator, the Kiwi ingenuity, the number 8 wire, the guy working away quietly in his shed, the independent researcher working away quietly in a lab somewhere who comes up with a brilliant idea. That's all part of the New Zealand story. And it's those smaller operators who will benefit most from this kind of legislation, Mr. Speaker. So, as things stand, when existing protections expire, and we do have existing protections, and this bill is about extending them rather than creating them, all the information that was discovered, the data that was created, that went along with the application to register that becomes available to all and sundry. And that means that, say, the XYZ company from the United States or Germany or China or wherever has then got access to that data, Mr. Speaker, and they can then use that to essentially duplicate the work that the original inventor did. They might come up with a slight change to it, come up with a different product. They themselves then have the wherewithal in terms of scale to manufacture larger quantities, to market globally, and to essentially pull the rug out from under the person in New Zealand who had the bright idea to start with. So if somebody's in a position where they're doing that sort of research, be they an independent operator or a small company, they're much less likely to put that kind of time, effort, money and resource into developing a new compound or to researching a new use for it if they know that 5 years down the track, all the protections for that research that they've done, that blood, sweat and tears that they put into it, their hard-earned toil, perhaps mortgage their house to fund it, it has the potential to be pulled away from them by some large corporation that's just been sitting waiting for the protections to expire, Mr. Speaker. So, and at the same time, as other members have mentioned, I think Mr. McKelvey mentioned, other companies based in other countries who've, in a similar manner, created new compounds or developed new uses for them, will be able to bring their products to New Zealand knowing that they will have the same degree of protection or a similar, comparable degree of protection for that data here as they would have anywhere else. So it means that by passing this bill, we give some surety to New Zealand farmers, to livestock farmers, growers and so forth, that they will be able to get access to the newest, latest, most cutting-edge, innovative products that are available overseas, because there's no disincentive for foreign-based companies who create and manufacture these compounds to not bring them here, knowing again that they will have the same degree of protection. So, in closing, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to reiterate that in some ways we don't believe this bill goes far enough. It could have gone further, but it went at least as far as the majority of submitters from industry asked for. That aside, we agree with the intentions of the bill. We believe it's necessary. It will bring advantages to this country. New Zealand First supports it, and I commend it to the House. Thank you.